Monday night, the Saints travel to Kansas City, play an important game. Like try to get out there with a win. Let's see if we can figure out how they can do it. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So when we're talking about the Saints offense versus the Chiefs defense, and we'll start there. Um, Pull this information from foxsports.com, by the way, and I rounded up the decimals, I rounded down, so the whole numbers are not 1000% accurate, full disclosure. But just kind of looking at the six categories of total offense, defense, passing, rushing, scoring, red zone, and third down. I think that those six kind of give you an indication for the most part where teams are at during the course of a season, and those are all very important stuff when you're actually going to play the game on Sunday. Um, Saints offense is 10th overall in total yards at 348 per game, and the Chiefs defend at a 326 per game average for puts them 15th in the league. So, kind of a top 10, top 15 version on both teams. You kind of evenly match there. And the same thing when you get to passing yards. We're 19th overall at 201 a game. They give up 227 a game, puts them 22nd overall. Get into a little bit of a gap when you're looking at rushing yards per game. We're seventh at 147 per game. They're eighth in defending at 99. And I think this is going to, we all know rushing is a big key stat for us, regardless. We've got to be able to do it because when we don't, the offense looks like it looked against Philly. So that one's going to be one to watch. We're running to a team that defends the run pretty good, and we probably all know why. We'll talk about him in a minute. The other stat that's kind of got a big gap that just jumps right out. So we're still first in the league in scoring at 31 a game, roughly. They're seventh at giving up only 18 a game. So they're giving up less than 20. We're scoring north of 30 on average. I understand about the first two games, but we still put up 24 last Sunday. So I think that 30 is may not be an average we can keep hitting every week, but I feel like if we do, if we can get around 30, we're going to put ourselves in the best position to win games. It the thinking that I'm coming up with is you're hopefully getting out of that malaise that we had the last 2 weeks, but more importantly, extending games where in that last 2 minutes where we struggle so freaking much, trying to take that as much play as out of play as you possibly can. The red zone and third down, we're second in the league in both. We convert red zone at 75%. So we score points when we get down there, and that's refreshing because we've struggled with that in recent years. And 53% on third down. Pretty good. You're converting over half your third downs. And when you kind of stack that up to them, they're defending the red zone at 42%. So a little less than half. So you like your chances. If you can move the ball and get down there, you're coming away with points. And on third down, they're defending at a 34%. So, that's roughly a third conversions they're giving up, and we're converting at over half pace. And that's another important set. We've got to stay on the field on offense. No doubt about it. And keeping those numbers on the conversion rate, and this is going to tie back into the rushing where we can run the ball and use our passing game off the run and stay ahead of the chains. We need to do all that. We kind of did it in Atlanta, and we almost snuck out of there with a win. But it's going to be the same formula this week in Kansas City. I don't see any other way around it. And when you're going to look at the Chiefs D, when you're going to start talking about players, Chris Jones, defensive lineman, if not for Aaron Donald, he would have been the best defensive lineman. And arguably, some people may even make the argument, but he'd have been the best defensive lineman over the past, 5-6 years, something like that. Still a damn good one. And yes, he's getting up there in age, and it doesn't seem to even slow him down. So when he's playing well and he's disruptive and what makes him really tough, a lot like Aaron Donald, you can kind of bounce him up and down that all on that line of scrimmage, and he can play from a lot of different positions and play them all well. Create havoc, and he can stat grab. He can sack quarterbacks. He can strip balls on running plays or when he gets to the quarterback. You have to handle him. The whole defense kind of goes through him. When he's disruptive and playing well, you've got problems. Our patchwork offensive line with injuries, and we're going to talk about more about that later. You got to deal with that big man, because if you don't, it's going to be a long night in Kansas City. And one of the things when he gets going and he's doing what he does, he makes the defensive line better. So you're going to have guys like Dana and Karloftis are going to play better, obviously. But it reverberates the way they do things all the way through their defense. They've got good players. None of them are household names, but Bolton and Tranquil are both pretty good linebackers. Reed, McDuffie in that secondary are um, pretty good defenders. And on the back end, you also have some young guys like at safety Cook, another one, Shamari Connors, who's made some big plays on defense already this year, including a return for a touchdown. And that's kind of what their DBs have done over the years, is the disruptive front line that pressure front and can defend the run with, and their linebackers, and kind of those safeties back there. I don't know if any of my household names will ever be all pros or even have a shot at the Hall of Fame, whatever you want to say, but I can say this much: they find ways to come up and make plays, and they tend to do it in big situations that affect the game. Flipping script, getting momentum back for KC, or making a big stop, or saving a game in the last 2 minutes, stuff like that. You see that from Kansas City the last 2 years, why they're two-time Super Bowl winning champs. You've definitely seen it in the 4 games they played this year. So on offense, keep looking back to red zone efficiency and points being key, running the ball being key, and converting on third down. So you're keeping control of the ball and you're not giving them the opportunity to take it away from you, and in some cases, really hurting you once they have the ball away from you, because their defense has shown over the last 3 years they can score it. They don't have to just take it away and hand it over to the offense. So got to be careful when dealing all that with KC's defense. And you flip it around and go Saints O versus, or rather Saints D versus Kansas City's offense. You start once again kind of finding some things that are pretty close, and then all of a sudden finding the gaps, and hopefully in the gaps are where we can take the advantage. But in total yards, we give up 330. They get 328. It's almost like it, both teams hit their average. It's equal. We give up 233 passing. We're actually one spot better than them defending the run. 233 passing, but we only give up 96 rushing yards a game. Their passing is 215, 11th in the league, and they run for 112, 15th in the league. So kind of both teams are a little bit of gap in that run game to the run defense. And so we have to keep our advantage on offense in the run game, and we have to keep the advantage on defense with the run defense and stopping that. Scoring, we only give up 17. They give up 23. So again, I'm thinking 20 for them is nothing. They'll hit their average of 23. I'm pretty sure on our defense, unless a few things go our way. Like we talked about earlier, we need to look to scoring around 30. Red zone, we defend at 22%. We have a really good red zone defense, so good in fact that it's they have it number 1 overall in the NFL in red zone defense. Kansas City, which this was a number surprised me when I looked it up, they're 23rd at 45%. They're normally a really good red zone team. Probably explains why they, even though they're 4-0, they've had 4 nail biters in one score games already this year. That red zone efficiency from them is just surprising. Third down, we defended a 35% rate, which is about at their conversion rate, and they defended 42%. So those numbers there on that back end, rushing, red zone, third down, I think all of that's going to play into. We need to keep those gaps where we have in those categories, and I think that again, we really need to look scoring 30. And when you're talking about their offense, well, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you almost feel like you can stop right there. In a lot of ways, he's The offense goes through him. And I mean, you really can't stop him. It I know it happens occasionally, but I don't think you can walk into a game expecting them to do that. I think what you really need to do is do your best to pressure him, because if he gets time, he's going to kill you. I mean, it's and you can say that about all quarterbacks. Last week in Atlanta, when we didn't get pressure on Cousins, he hurt us. Kirk Cousins is a fine quarterback. Had a great game last night against the Bucks, but he's no Patrick Mahomes. So just think what Mahomes can do to you when he gets time. He's hard to get on the ground. He's always been a hard quarterback to sack, but you want him to not hold the ball and be able to throw it downfield. Kelsey has been mostly quiet this year. Overall, tight end position as a whole, a couple big games here and there by tight ends. God knows week 3 there was one against us. So I have a concern there that even though Kelsey's been quiet, if we're not careful, he could drop a Goddard on our head. So we're gonna have to make sure we defend him. He's the most likely target with Rashee Rice out. However, they got this rookie kid. I know you probably heard of him, Worthy, who's basically a 4.2 guy and I think he's the guy that ran the fastest 40 in the combine history ever back in April. Caught a long one against San Diego. So the Sunday kind of was turned the game when San Diego seemed like they were in pretty good control of it. So you better know where he's at all times, and that's really the key to bring it back to pressure Mahomes. As weird as it sounds, you really want him to try to get rid of it quick to Kelsey, because hopefully we can deal with Kelsey, and I'll let him catch 10 balls for 50 yards all game long. I feel like that's a chance to win. But he starts operating downfield because we can't control him, and then Worthy really starts, because I don't think we've got anybody on our team that can catch Worthy on defense if he breaks out. So could be problematic. That I think that's the two places where you start. But much like their defense, they have, I don't want to quite call them no-name offensive players, because by the fact they play on Kansas City's offense and anybody watches them, especially primetime and playoffs and Super Bowls, some of these names, Watson, Shushu Smith, Kareem Hunt's back in the fold. So they have some guys split around that when you're not paying attention to. Sam J. Piron is a longtime NFL kind of jack of all trades running back. He's there. He's another one. If you're not careful, you're playing with fire if you lose sight of them or leave them alone. They have a lot of guys in their offense like that. A couple of young that I don't think they've played. They're a couple of faster receivers that they have that you may see because they're having a little injury problems, and their names are escaping me right now because basically they haven't done much. But on paper, they've got more guys back there waiting to fill in if they need them. So, and normally you wouldn't be too worried about the guys you never heard of that are fast, except for the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes, and if he can figure out a way to get the ball to him, and if they can actually catch it, it's problematic. I mean, there's just no getting around that. So you've got to do your best. I mean, it's almost like you approach both sides of the ball with Kansas City the same way. They have one guy on both sides of the ball that can just be the guy that takes over a game. Everybody else around him is going to play better and just keeps putting you in bad position all game long. That's kind of Casey's game the last 2 years, because like you said earlier, it's kind of a lot of the collective minds around the NFL that Mahomes is still throwing over the top and getting these huge chunk plays like he did when Tyreek Hill was there. And the reality of the situation is they are the two that caused all this decline in the passing game that's been going on yearly since basically 2021, because 2020, those two were just in the height of blowing defenses up. They ran into Tampa Bay during the regular season. Todd Bowles went with a lot of man, a lot of pressure looks that they destroyed. That would be the game where Tyreek and Mahomes had 200 yards passing, receiving in the first quarter of the game with 2 touchdowns. So when they met in the Super Bowl later that same year, Todd Todd Bowles invented what we talk about a lot on this channel lately, and some of the stuff that we've been dealing with in these past few games, or what we're not doing on defense at times, is Paul said, I'm not doing the man thing like we did before they torched us. And he went hard fronts, a lot of shell coverage, double safeties, triple safeties, keep everything in front, zone, even if they're running the ball. We don't care. We want to face Mahomes. We want to face the running backs. Just keep everything to a minimum. Do not let them take the deep shots at all during the game. Make them grind it out and go down the field and score. And it worked for Tampa Bay. And then a lot of teams dusted that off and used it in 2021. And Mahomes didn't have the year. That was the first of his non-throwing for nearly 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns and all that craziness he was doing, as a lot of other quarterbacks. Well, Kansas City being Kansas City, they've picked up on that. Now they run an offense where very similar to what the Saints want to do. We'll take what you're going to give us. We'll make big plays off of it too. If you're not careful, you miss that tackle, man. We got guys that are going to burn you. But if you give me time where we can work the ball downfield, we're going to take our deep shots. And Mahomes is so good at what he does. He really makes this work. And if you want to call it a check down offense or whatever you want to call it, they still use it to put tremendous strain and pressure on defenses, much like their defense does to your offense for 60 minutes. They're going to do the same thing on offense to your defense for 60 minutes. And it's nothing exotic and mind blowing like we saw early in his career, but it's effective as hell, and they win a lot of games doing it.
So we'll give a very quick run through on the injuries because our practice report when it's coming to injuries is still not good. Um, Gay Hill, Ruiz, Lemieux, Turner, no practice. Blake Groupie, who apparently had something going on with his hip, was back today. And we're getting maybe to Demario back, hopefully, but Fuaga, Kamara, Jawan Johnson, Brian Brzee, Kendra Miller, Chris Olave, Cedric Wilson, all appearing on it. All were limited. Some were still limited today. Some came back full. Um, since this is Friday afternoon, we still have another one coming out tomorrow. That's going to be listing questionable, doubtful, out, which is subject to change on Sunday because somebody could always get downgraded. So basically, the injury report right now is more or less useless for us because we don't know what's going on. They've got a few of their key guys listed in there, in theirs. Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Forgot to mention Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's been on IR. He's designated to return, so he's practicing with the team, could be activated, and may have been. I'm not really sure what his status is. But you could expect him back, and that would bolster that running game in that backfield somewhat, along with Hunt. Hartman was one of the guys I was trying to think of who was younger, who they don't use a lot, but is fast as hell. And he showed up on the injury report with the knee, limited yesterday and out today. So they could be losing another weapon to get the ball to on the outside for Mahomes. Again, we'll see how it plays out on the injury because it's just this early in the process when you're looking at injury reports. It's just a little hard to nail stuff down. One thing we do need to mention is we've had a key roster move. Probably this will be probably Friday evening, Friday night before it gets uploaded. So you probably would have heard that A.T. Perry was waived, and we signed a center, Connor McGovern, off the Jets practice squad, who's an 8-year veteran. And has ties previously with both Rick Dennison and John Benton. And with our center issues kind of stacking up some injuries because now you have Lemieux that's um, possibly maybe hurt. Not sure what his status is. Lucas Patrick showing up on the practice report with a groin, did not practice. I don't think I mentioned him just now. We're running out of centers again. Very quickly, there's that possibility. So I'm thinking that's what this move was all about. And Perry, if he clears waivers, is probably likely going to wind up back on the practice squad. And he's been battling injuries himself, so I'm assuming that's why they kind of picked him to wash him through, thinking nobody's going to pick up an injured receiver that to put on their
active 53 man. Because I do believe, final thought on this, not 100% sure at one point it was if you claim somebody off or sign somebody off another team's practice squad, he's on your 53 man. And I think possibly for the rest of the year, but I know for a time period he is before you can take him off. So, guy that's injured, there's probably not many teams going to pick him up. So I'm thinking that's probably why they picked Perry. How this all shakes out, we will know more later, but I think there's just going to a lot of guys on this list that you're looking at, possibly for both teams, but definitely for us. Um, we'll get an indication whether or not they make the trip to Kansas City. Hate to say it that way, but that's kind of what it boils down to. But I'm thinking that they're more than likely going to be some game time decisions involved there. And so you kind of the point now, what's the keys to victory? Well, unstated, so I'm not even putting this on the list, is that whole injury situation. And both teams have kind of been affected by it. Um, and we don't know on our list how bad, who is, limit, all that yet, how that's going to shake out. But overcoming that and having these guys ready to go on Monday is going to go a long way to solving a lot of our issues. But if not, then look, we're to the point, next man up. It's got to get out there and do the job. It's just sitting 2-2 and going in the stretch we're going into. There's a possibility some guys who are limited and may or may not have be able to play on Monday just may not go because of the short week and then the really short week that's going to follow. If you roll them out there now, you might lose them for 2 more games, and that's got to be going through minds in the organization. So, sans the injuries, however they turn out, we've still got to get on the field. And once we're on the field with whoever we got available, I think there's really 4 things you got to do if you're the Saints. And the first one, look, it doesn't matter who's on the field. Even if we have everybody, the whole entire roster miraculously heals and shows back up ready to go Monday night, the Saints have to get back to being disciplined and focused when they play the game of football. Now, say what you want about the quality of opponents for the first 2 weeks as opposed to the next 2 weeks. Don't really care because it doesn't really matter, because what we're talking about in this conversation is do the things you can do. Hold yourself accountable for the things that you control. Biggest part of our problem the last 2 weeks with giving those 2 games away when we had a chance to win is we let a lot of things that were definitely in our control spin out of control. And it was through being undisciplined, losing focus at a key moment, something along those lines. Like, you got to stop that stuff out, because here's the deal. You're playing a team that doesn't, I shouldn't say normally, because I don't really know if they ever truly play undisciplined football or truly play unfocused football where unforced errors are coming into play. And even if they do, they cover it up real well and recover from it, and they can still go on and win games. We don't recover from them when we do not go on to win games. And if you do that Monday night, if those 2 things keep jumping out like they did the previous 2 games, you can forget about it. There's no way in hell you're rolling in Arrowhead on a Monday night and beating Kansas City. Bottom line. So whatever it is they need to do it. And that stuff's got to stop. The other thing is, and we've talked a little bit about this in recent weeks is Saints have to be better at situational football. And look, Kansas City is a master of situational football. And what I mean by that is look, they can speed a game up, they can slow it down. They can just kind of control what's going on. They do it with really good coaching, really good schemes, knowing their personnel, who to have on the field and when, and who not to have on the field when, based on the circumstances of the situation. Down to distance, time on the clock, score, who we're playing, what do they want to do? What do they like to do? What do we want them to do? Can we force them to do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the way they play the game. Spagnuolo's become really good at scheming defenses to do that. And Andy Reid, for a long, long time, has really been really, really good doing that with offenses. And they can take on both sides of the ball whatever they can get from you. Whatever you choose to give them, they can take it, and they can use it to still make big plays. And that's kind of how Going back to the offense that we're talking about, where it was a lot of over the top downfield stuff to get their big plays. Well, they figured out teams are trying to stop that. Well, we'll take what they give us in the short game, but we will still figure out ways to get big plays out of it. Defensively, they know everybody's going to be balled up to try to handle Chris Jones. Well, okay, if they're going to commit all their resources to try to slow down Chris Jones, well, they're giving other guys opportunities to go make big plays. And their defense, those other guys will step up and make big plays. It's just a lot of pressure. It's a lot to deal with. So we have to be better because I don't think we've been very good recognizing a lot of that stuff in the last two games or reacting to it fast enough. Like, you better get ready for it because you're going to see an awful lot of it. Got to have the plan in place. And this goes back to what we got to do first. So the team has to be disciplined and focused and be ready when that kind of stuff is hitting them. DA at one point this week said, look, we really got to rely on our techniques. If that's the key to it, then rely on your techniques, whatever it is. The stuff you control, you have to control it against these guys because they will grab you by the neck, spin you around, and it will be out of control so fast you don't even know what hit you. And three, we keep mentioning, there's two guys, one on both sides of the ball. You have to handle them. You have to. You let them go off and get hot and start. It's going to be a long night. It's going to be a really long night. And the fourth point is something I brought up earlier. I think we have to be around the 30 mark. I think that's a key to victory for us for the foreseeable future, especially in the next three games. And if we're nowhere near 30, we're nowhere near a victory. Yeah. It's kind of how I'm breaking down this game. And it's going to have to be a game where we show up, don't make the critical errors, stay in the game, convert third downs, convert red zones, get points, and try not to hang on for dear life like we did at the end of the last two games. Go ahead and make a play in those last 2 minutes also. Whether it's we got a lead and you ice it, or we make a big play to come back and score points at the very end to win it. But either way, I think that's going to have to ultimately, I think that's what's going to, the last 2 minutes is going to predict the game if we can play the first 58 minutes like we're capable of playing and stay right there with Kansas City. So there you have it. That's when, just laying it out there. I think that's what we're going to do. But go out on a limb. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to say we hit our 30 and we do what we need to do at the end of the game. We roll out of there with a 31-28 victory, Saints. We're going to finally flip this trend around. We're going to go make the game we need to make Monday night. Come out of there with the win, be 3-2, hit that backstretch with the Bucks coming into town and reclaim our season. So for all you people who think I'm totally freaking insane for saying that, go ahead and hit the thumbs up because I'm expecting a lot of thumbs up because, yeah, I think I'm totally nuts coming up with that. But at this point, I'm just looking at it and going, F it. You got to go make it happen if you want to have the season that you want to have, and you got to do it in this game. So give me my last shot of Kool-Aid for the year on this one. And 31-28, Saints pull out the miracle, and we flip our season around. And afterwards, I'm going to set up a live stream for 10 o'clock. That's where I'm going to put it up. I'm going to do that probably tomorrow for the post game. So the game runs a little long. It's kind of difficult for me to sneak in and watch the game and still be live. I got to be careful about distributing stuff that's NFL property live. So I will likely just delay it and come on as soon as the game's over. So just have your notifications hit. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe so you can hit the notifications and you'll know exactly when we're going to be live. And I'm crazy, man. I'm crazy, Tim, today. Hey, we're going to be hoodatting our behinds off going, hey, we just pulled the big upset in Arrowhead. So till I see you Monday night, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.